Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome, Joal Harding, to Raw and Cooked Vegan.
Thank you, Paul. Nice
Great
to be
to
here.
have. All right, good. So the way I usually start these, Joal, is I just would like to hear a little bit how you were raised. What was your family's nutritional awareness and fitness awareness?
Ah, how's that for an answer?
All right.
Grew up standard American diet, was completely unaware. There was a complete disconnect between what was on my plate when my stepmother was feeding me liver, telling me that it's good for me to eat.
Yeah,
and then I need to eat it, and it tasted horrible, liver and onions. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
And I think about it now, and of course, if I had had the awareness, things would have been much different.
Sure.
But grew up as a child just with the regular foods of meat and dairy, and
Right.
now
right.
just disgusts me, but
yeah.
now I know better. When you know better,
I know
you do
that.
better.
That liver and onions thing, that's amazing. I don't get it. But okay, so and then also on fitness, were you athletic when you were young?
Yes, I was really athletic. I was a swimmer, and then I was a tennis player, and at 13 is when I started the golf.
Okay.
So I was always aware of the fitness aspect of health, not the nutritional aspect nearly as much. But my parents were not into fitness or wellness. You know, they were just doing their jobs, and that was about it.
All right. Now that's pretty young, 13. When you started, did instructors already recognize that you have like a intrinsic talent for golf?
Exactly. Yeah. That typical, oh, you have a natural swing. This is what you should be doing. And that's all my dad had to hear. And tennis and swimming went out the window, and now your focus is golf. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so standard American diet, and then how long did that remain in place? Like at what age did you start considering changing your diet?
I really didn't start considering changing it until after college. Like within college, I started having. They said that I had low blood sugar.
Okay.
And they promoted cheese and meat. Cheese and meat to stabilize my blood sugar. And here I'm just doing what the doctor tells me, completely unaware. And that did not help. And I kept going. And I love food. I love to eat.
Yeah.
So I would do anything to try to feel better because I was feeling in such a low. So then I started in college really trying to figure it out, being my own little guinea pig. And that's when I happened upon Tony Robbins' book, to Unlimited Power, mainly for the athletic aspect and being the best you can be, tapping into all those skills in the mind between the 6 inches. You know, Jack Nicklaus says, most important yardage on the golf course is the 6 inches between your ears. So in studying Tony Robbins, that flicked the switch to, he has a whole chapter, I believe, on the chickens living in excrement. And then I started watching documentaries on how the cattle are killed and brought to slaughter and the condition at which they're brought to slaughter. And it gives me chills right now. That was it. I had that awakening, and it changed my diet.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring him up because I remember, I think it was like the 80s or 90s. The Diamonds wrote Fit for Life, and they were connected with Tony Robbins, I think. And that's amazing. So it's been around a while, and it seems like it's taken. I think hopefully it's finally kind of expanding a little more into the broader public, which is great with like plant-based movement and everything. So okay, so can you tell us a little about once you got this information and you started to apply these changes, did you initially go full-on vegan, or did you go vegetarian first? And how was that transition process?
The transition process was simple because there were so many alternative foods. If I wanted cheese, I actually went vegetarian first.
Okay.
And if I wanted cheese, I would have the cheese alternative, basically. Or if I wanted a sausage or a hot dog or a chick patty, Morningstar Farms, and Boca Burgers.
Right.
And so I enjoyed those things. still not optimal health, but at that time it was better than what
Definitely.
I was doing.
Definitely.
And I took steps along the way, and I just got more and more and pure to the point that I am now, which is basically whole food, plant-based, anything that comes from the ground.
Gotcha. Right. Exactly. Okay. And can you tell us what happened in terms of physical health as this transition progressed?
It was both physical, mental clarity, and just the knowing that I was doing better for the planet, for the animals, and for myself was a better place from which to operate. I just felt more positive in that direction, and I think that really influences how one feels overall.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh my God, I feel so much better, I'm sleeping better. I can tell you, I felt lighter.
Yeah.
I did lose weight. I didn't have a lot to lose, but I was a little thicker, as they say, and I'm 6 feet tall. So
Okay.
I can put on 20 pounds and it won't really make that big of a difference, you know?
Yeah.
I'm lucky that way, but I think it was more mental than physical. But mental clarity was so much better.
And it sounds like, of course, when they said earlier that you were having blood sugar issues, did those go away?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I also had a pulmonary embolism when I was in college, my junior year. And that also turned me on to, what do I need to do here so my blood doesn't thicken? When I already found out that I had these precursors then to blood clotting, you know, those things happen and you realize I've got to take this into my own hands kind of thing.
All right. Now, did you, when you first did this, what was your take on fat? And have you since you've gone on, have you kind of lowered the fat content of the vegan diet down to a low?
100%.
Yeah.
Up until about 7 years ago, I think it was 8 years ago, I got turned on to Dr. Esselstyn and C. Colin Campbell and all of those studies and the endothelium cells and how when we take in fat, it's absolutely damaging our endothelium. And I have 3 daughters, and they also have the blood clotting factors. And so once I got that information and I researched more and more, I devour it. Sorry, that's my cat.
No, that's okay. Yeah, you can introduce us. That's great.
I just, every morning for the past 7 years, I mean, I've always been into it, but as I'm working out, I have my iPad or my computer, and I'm always watching Dr. Michael Greger, and I learned about Neil Bernard and John McDougall, and all I do is take in all of that information, and it's all consistent. It's the fat that's the problem. We need to get back to that whole food, plant-based diet. It seems elementary.
I know. It's like once you get it all in, it's like, how can somebody not do it? Yeah. So another thing that I'm curious about is, so you said there was kind of a strong psychological effect maybe as you made this transition. And did you notice any effect on the golf course, any improvements in terms of concentration, that sort of thing?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it definitely was better. I was fueling myself better, so my body wasn't in a fight with itself during a round. And I could have better stamina. You know, going out, I would go out and run 5 miles, then go play competitively 18 holes of golf.
Wow.
Which is another 5 miles, and it wouldn't be nothing to me, absolutely nothing. And then I might work out again at night, just because for the workout, just the endorphins and the nutrition and the knowledge, it was just a winning combination.
Wow. Okay, there's so many things I want to ask you. Let me get this section out of the way. I'm gonna throw a couple of nutrients out at you, and I want you to tell me the conclusions you've reached for yourself on each one. The first one is vitamin B12.
Vitamin B12, I do use nutritional yeast flakes.
Okay.
And I kind of get it from there. Sometimes in the past I have taken a sublingual little pill from, I think that was from Carlson's or Premier vitamin company. since I have the pulmonary embolism, I have to get my blood checked regularly, and I really haven't had any low B12 issues. And
Great.
I don't even take things regularly, only now and then kind of thing. And
Yeah,
I just happen to like nutritional yeast flakes, although, you know, I'm torn because some say, oh, it's an ExtoToxin, it's bad for the brain, you know, how pure do I want to be? But
Right. Yeah. All right. And how about, I imagine you get tons of sun because you're out playing so much. So is vitamin D an issue at all for you, maybe in the wintertime or?
Yeah, in the winter, it really isn't. In the wintertime, of course, I'm stuck in Michigan, unfortunately. But in the wintertime, it's hard to get as much and to expose the skin because we're bundled up to here. And so our face is the only thing that's getting some. But I really haven't had any issues, so I don't have to worry about it.
Okay, and what's your take on iodine? Have you read anything on that? Do you do like sea vegetables once in a while, or do you think it's not really an issue?
Again, for me, it hasn't been an issue, but keeping that in mind, because I know there are some things that we need to be a little bit more careful of as vegans, which, it's funny because people will say, oh, B12, but the animal eaters are also deficient. We just so happen to be pulled out of the mix, but they're just as deficient because of the soil and all that good stuff that we know.
Right.
But just the thought that it comes from the gut of the animal is just, Anyway, the iodine, I eat, I believe that I get seaweed for sushi.
Yeah.
So I get a fair share of that. I make my own,
that's great.
Plain old rice, and I just roll it up, so I figure I'm getting enough of it.
That's great. All right. And since you mentioned that, you're making me think, what's your take on salt? Do you use salt in food? And do you, maybe like with sushi, do you use a little, is it tamari sauce?
I'd love to use a big bowl of Bragg's liquid aminos.
Okay.
I'm so salt sensitive that I cannot use any salt.
Interesting.
At all. I can't even, if I take in salt, a few days ago when I had my girls, we had a bunch of all vegan foods. They eat more, not as much pure from the ground. Like I'll eat a potato like an apple, but with them I'll make a casserole or something like that. All vegan, but it's a little bit more combined with other things. But I had a couple things that were vegan, of course, but had some additional salt, like some tomato sauce that I make myself from a jar. Yeah. I can tell the next day I blow up, so I don't add salt to anything. And
that's a great point. So you've noticed that the kind of cleaner your diet has gotten, the more refined the body's sensitivity to foods that are not so healthy.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Now, interesting thing. So you have 3 daughters, and it sounds like you've been vegan for a long time. So what's it been like with the family? Like when you first made this change, did this occur when you had your daughters? And did you kind of say, well, I'm doing the cooking, you guys are going to be vegan too, or what happened?
Good question. Luckily, I started on the vegetarian route before I had my first child, and she's 17 and a half now.
Okay.
So they have never had a scrap of meat.
Wow.
Or the only thing they've had that's bad is dairy, when they were little. But
awesome.
Now they're vegan. They've been vegan for at least 7-8 years.
Wow.
Except when they're with their dad, occasionally they'll come home and I'll say, what'd you have for dinner? And they'll tell me, oh, we had fettuccine Alfredo. I'm like, oh my God. So I have to give them the whole, and I might show them a small snippet of cows and how the milk is, and all that kind of stuff. They're like, no, we don't want to see. We know. And I'm like, well, if you know, then don't choose those foods. You've got to, they aren't as savvy. My youngest is only going to be a freshman this year in high school, and so she doesn't quite know all the ins and outs of veganism, but they're pretty much vegan, so they've never had any meat.
That's awesome. And since you brought this up a couple times, I think it's great to talk about. I know it's not the most pleasant topic, but you mentioned like when you first started looking into this, the kind of the ethical side of things, and I guess would you say your primary motivation was health, and then secondarily you became aware of the ethics and perhaps the environment, and maybe talk a little about ethics and environment, and what were some of the things that just totally freaked you out at how horrifying they were?
Yeah. The first thing, like I said, with the Tony Robbins, with just reading that, and then about the chickens and what they're living in, and then how all their flesh is teeming with all that bacteria from all the feces that they're living in, and then with the cows being how they are killed, and then watching it, then seeking out videos because I want to know. I mean, I'll to educate myself what the real truth is, and not making the disconnect from the piece of chicken that used to be on my plate and how it got there.
Yeah.
So, really just learning more about that is and just looking at all those videos completely turned me off to, and then it did become more ethical. It started as the health, just reading the books, and then at almost the same time it was the ethics, and it was a snowball effect to I can't do it.
Yeah, totally. And have you also along the way seen some of the environmental damage that's caused by animal production?
Oh, it just blows me away. All of the attention put on carpool, and it makes me sick. I was in a country club at one of my girls' golf tournaments the other day. Conserve water. Turn off the water to wash your hands. And I'm thinking, okay, how about the chicken that you're having for lunch? How many thousands of gallons did it take to produce?
Amen.
1 pound of flesh, 500 gallons just to prepare for the plate. But before that even, thousands and thousands and thousands. And then, of course, all the animal agriculture and all of the fumes that are going out, and with the processing and the gases.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
It's true.
The
it's like
attention is put not where it should be, and people completely think, "Oh, I'll turn the water off while I brush my teeth. Aren't I wonderful?"
I know. It's crazy. It's so true. It's such a great point. All right. Let me. There's a couple other things I'll ask you. How about water intake? Do you try to drink a lot of water? Do you think just drinking when you're thirsty is adequate? What's your take on water?
I love water. I have a love affair with water. I don't know what I do without it. I drink it when I'm thirsty, when I'm not thirsty. If I get thirsty, watch out. I'm going to drink a gallon of water. I cannot drink enough water. First thing in the morning, have several cups. I mean, I don't even count anymore. I don't even have to try to get it in. I just have it with me at all times. If I don't have it, I need it.
Okay, gotcha. All right, and do you have like a purification system at home?
I do. I have a reverse osmosis
Nice.
So did some research way back and found, that it was hopefully one of the better ways to go.
Excellent. And one thing, what have you? I'm sure you've come across kind of raw food in your studies and everything, and it sounds like you said you'll eat a potato like an apple, so you get pretty natural. And what's your take on like food combining and like an all fruit meal, stuff like that?
Yeah, I used to be real concerned with because the focus was so put on the protein when I was competitively playing on the LPGA tour, and you have to get your protein and for muscle building, because I was working out a lot, and I still do, but now I know better. And so back then I would be more worried about getting some source of protein with the vegetables, not so much fruits or cooked and what's first and all that. But then probably 6 years ago, I came across Dr. Doug Graham and the whole 80-10-10, read everything, watched all his videos, and I try to eat mostly raw, and I've gone raw for pretty much months on end, 100% raw. then it gets cold.
Yeah.
Just those old patterns of wanting something warm and feeling satisfied. It's like a warm hug, a warm meal to me.
Yeah, I love that, Joal. That makes sense. It's common sense. I never bought this thing that, that it makes sense that you psychologically want something warm in the winter. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it does warm the body. Eating a 10 banana smoothie is great, but I want to feel hot when it's -20 here,
Yeah. And in Michigan, you guys have a healthy winter. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I do eat as much raw as I can these days. I try to eat pretty much mono meals. I mean, I can tell, Paul, if I start combining too many things, the ExtoToxins, then it's just a sweet, salty, a sweet, a salty. And a salty for me these days might be potatoes and vinegar, or fresh zucchini. I'll chop that up like just in circles and dip it in vinegar and add nutritional yeast flakes.
Nice.
And it's like to me, a salt and vinegar potato chip.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
That's the point to where I have gotten. But if I pair that with, then I'll have a banana smoothie or something, then I get on this kind of roller coaster of salt, sweet, the old patterns of when I used to have, pizza and ice cream kind of.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I try to keep the palate not so excited.
Yeah. Okay. I got that's interesting. Now you've mentioned this term a couple times, and I'm not so up on it. Tell me, ExtoToxin. Does that mean that it has? I mean, of course, a toxin is like a poisonous effect in the body. This does that mean it's aggressively doing something harmful in the body?
Well, from what I've read, like the caffeine in coffee and things, bromine and
theobromine.
yeast.
Okay. Theobromine. What's that stuff in chocolate? Yeah.
Right, exactly. And even the nutritional yeast flakes, they'll say that it's for the brain, causes something to go on that I don't know exactly, but there are things that switch on. It's like that thing that they put in potato chips and things like that, so people can't. I mean, it's an addictive. You want to keep on eating them. That kind of thing. Just fire something in the brain where you cannot get enough, and that's probably just because I love food so much as well. But eating this way, I can just pound down as much as I want to, and I never have to worry about my weight, which is great for me because I want to remain semi-svelte and eat at the same time and not be starving myself, and calorie counting is dream.
Right. That's awesome.
Plus, raising my 3 girls, I want to create a healthy model. I don't want to be not eating, I want them to eat.
Yeah, especially in this culture where girls get drawn into like anorexia, bulimia. Yeah, totally. All right. So there was something I was just going to ask you. In terms of you kind of told me about this. The illnesses when you were growing up compared to now. So like you're eating the SAD diet, and usually if you're a kid eating the SAD diet, you'll get these annual flus and you'll have other illnesses. And then when you're vegan, that often shifts. Was that the case for you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. When I was watching your interview, I had the same symptoms. One time a year, I could almost guarantee when it would be. It would either be February, March, or kind of late December going into January. I would get so sick for a week to 2 weeks, usually at least 2 weeks, actually, now that I think about it. I'd have to be on a Z-Pack. It would be sinus infection and just laid out. And since being full-on vegan, I don't even get sick. It's fantastic. Everybody else can be sick around me and I won't get sick. And I teach a lot of kids with with the golf. I'm around a lot of people and I'm lucky I don't get sick.
That's such a great point. Yeah. And it's not luck because you're doing the right thing. Yeah. And that's essentially because people say, like teachers that work in schools or parents that have kids, they just think it's normal that they're going to get these viruses from these kids. And that's a great example. You're just not susceptible to them. my thing is like, it's not the virus, it's your immune system. And if you eating the way you are, your immune system is like primed and nothing's going to get in there.
Right.
So, okay. Let me ask you a little bit about the golf. So you're 13 and you realize you have this talent. And so did you just start playing golf like crazy throughout high school? And when did you kind of think, hey, maybe I can do this professionally? When did that happen?
Yeah, that was right around probably by 13 and a half.
Wow.
It just happened really quickly. And I started playing just really well in a short amount of time. And the scores were very low. And I didn't think it was any big deal because it just came naturally.
Wow.
And I started putting the work and the mind into it and realized, okay, well, I'm going to get a scholarship. And my dad set up all the tournaments that I was going to play in and national and international events, and then got the scholarship, and with the long-term goal being to be on the LPGA tour. And I graduated from Auburn, was All-American and won golf tournaments and stuff, and then played on the World Cup team in France that represented the United States right after college as an amateur. And then when I got back, turned pro, and then had to have shoulder surgery because my ligament was detached. So I have 2 screws in there so that I could continue to play. And that later that same year qualified for the tour and got to play a couple of years, but my back then decided, no, I don't think you can continue to do this physically. And I have a degenerative disc disease in my back.
Huh.
So food and inflammation and that aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I'm my own little guinea pig. I try certain things. I see if it affects the back and the muscles and joints and things. And I'm learning and learning more and more.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know I have kind of a chronic neck thing, and if I drink some wine, I can feel it the next day or stuff like that, so yeah. Can totally relate to that. And you're bringing up a point I wanted to ask you about. Golf is an asymmetrical sport. And I used to teach yoga, and one of the cool things about yoga is that it's this symmetrical practice. How common is this in golf that you get these physical issues because it's asymmetrical and you're not balancing it out, and I guess just overuse? Is that what happened to your shoulder?
Yes, absolutely. And because with females especially, the ligaments being so much more like a rubber band, looser than the male, it's obviously for childbirthing reasons.
Yep.
Then it just couldn't take all that wear. I mean, to be good at anything, it's redoing the same movement like you're saying. And, I'll talk to chefs even these days, and they're telling me that they need to have surgery because with their pan, they're doing this. And,
right.
And their shoulder is taking the brunt of that, and any overuse in one direction, like you're saying, is whether male or female, but more so being female. Yeah, it definitely is prevalent. I mean, you can see it in a lot of the golfers these days, especially, well, we know Tiger, obviously, with his back and knee. And then the guys today, and even back 20 years, they're just getting more and more body aware of trying to preserve what they have to make it strong, to be able to do the repetitive motion. Yeah.
Did you have times over the course of your career where you would try and change your form to address physical issues, and is that super hard to do because you've established this form that's been working for you, and then you got to totally redo everything? Yes.
Back in my day, we had the Health South vans out there, and they were all about fitness and physical therapy. And so, and then after having the surgery, I had to make my swing shorter. I naturally have a very long swing and high swing arc-wise. And so my hands basically would just get very high rather than low. So I would try to change the plane of my swing, change the length of my swing. Then when my back started, I would have to tuck the pelvis under and swing in almost almost like when you're doing cat pose and you have to tilt under the buns, the pelvis, I would have to swing from that position, maintain
Wow.
that, which is kind of different. You know, it engages the whole core, and then that makes the swing different. But,
Wow. Yeah.
you know, it's a whole, they want to do the whole fusion. They've been wanting to do that for 25 years, but I can't do it. It just,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want those pins in your back. Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have constant pain, or is it just kind of, does it come and go? Oh man.
No, unfortunately, I walk around most days like I'm about 80 years old, I would imagine.
Oh man, that's a
You know,
shame.
luckily I still do my workout. I love to run, and I really I shouldn't run. Obviously, I don't have discs left. But sometimes I just have to. So I work around it. I do everything I can to work with it, but it's no fun.
All right. One thing that I often think of, golf is it can be an expensive sport.
Yeah.
What can you say for folks that are interested, but it's like out of their price range? Are there ways they can get around that?
Yeah, for sure. These days, I would start with equipment. You can buy in the old days, you would have to buy a set of clubs for close to $1,000. It was just at least $700 at least. And then you have to buy even drivers. Even today, if you went top of the line, you could spend $500-600 on a simple driver on one club, which is ridiculous. But people will do anything to improve their golf game, thinking it's not the what do they say? It's not the arrow. It's,
yeah.
So it's not the arrow, it's the Indian. So, but the played against sports places, and now club companies make entire sets of golf clubs, including your golf bag and all the clubs that you really need for with putter, driver, irons, everything. Maybe a couple $100, and like starting at $300 to $500 max. You can get whole sets, or you can buy used equipment from these played against sports-like places.
Yeah.
Very nice used equipment, because people are turning their equipment over to get the next best thing. And eBay and outlets like that. But as long as somebody's not buying something that's 20 years old or even 10 years old, I would say keep it within the last 5 years.
Okay.
Then you're just fine. And then...
And like on greens fees, because, where I live, there's this super expensive golf course. I would just never go because the greens fees are just insane. But I found there's like this tiny little course in this town near me that's like this old course. It's like, I think it's like less than $20 for 9 holes, I mean, that's reasonable. That's doable,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and these days, with the economy the way it is, even the country clubs have lowered some of them aren't even private anymore. They need to get the public in to be paying them to keep the clubhouse and the course going. But rates have gone down. The course where I work at Fox Hills in Plymouth, their rates have gone down for a round of golf. It used to be around, I want to say $56 for a round. At one of their courses, and now I want to say it's in the 40s. So, I mean, that's quite a big difference. And golf courses, on the most part, are aware that the economy has shifted. They need to stay alive, so they need to lower their rates. And there are better times, like before 9 a.m. or after 4 p.m., when you can get better prices as well.
All right. What do you think, sometimes I hear a criticism of golf courses that they're, they manage the landscaping, and there's so much, fertilizer and kind of artificial controls going into to maintain these golf courses. What's your take on that? And are there any trends within the golfing community to kind of get these facilities more natural?
Yeah, good question. At Fox Hills, we're a part of the Audubon Society, so we can't use anything that's going to harm nature. We can't use even, and we joke about it because on a couple of our holes, we have 63 holes there. So One of our courses is a par 3 course, and it's deep in the woods, a couple of the holes, 12, 13, 14. And we always joke and say there aren't enough bat houses out here to eat all of these mosquitoes. We're allowed to put bat houses out there to naturally take care of the mosquitoes. But we can't use anything out there, or they can't use anything out there that's going to harm nature or the birds, or, so they do it as naturally as possible. And I do think that the state of Michigan, or whichever state you're in, then will give you, I think it works both ways. I think you get a certain amount of money to maintain an area that is dark chemical free. Obviously, they're still using some fertilizers and things like that, but they're less harmful.
Okay,
to nature.
great.
Overall, the water, the system, everything.
Okay. I'm kind of jumping around here a little. I apologize, but when you're teaching someone, let's say new to golf, is there kind of a set of things you get them through? Like I guess initially you work on their swing and just helping them understand the swing, and then is there kind of phases you progress through as you're teaching someone? Yes,
I really try to think of it from the point of view if I had never done it, and then I even take it a step further, and I imagine in my mind, what if I was going to be an ice skater, and somebody was trying to instruct me to do something that I have never felt before, a triple sow cow. How in the world am I going to perform a triple sow cow? I don't even know the first step in the very first move in getting there. I don't know what it feels like. Sure, I've seen it. Professionals do it. So I really try to go around the course that way in teaching, starting with how it feels to them, how it looks to them, creating that mind and the brain to body connection, because there needs to be some sort of sensation, because feel isn't real so much. They need to see it. They need to see how it's done. I tell my students, don't believe me. Look at the 40 Hall of Famers. Just look at the similarities there. And I have it be a learning process for them. I can tell you so many people who have been playing 20 some odd years or more, and they don't even know what impact position should look like or should feel like. And they're savvy, seasoned golfers, been doing it their whole life. I tell them, okay, show me P7, show me impact position, show me where your hand should be, where the club should be. They have no idea. So I really try to educate them on the pieces of the swing and the whole setup and the stance, the posture and stuff. And it's foreign to people because I tell them we're vertical beings. We stand, we sit, and we lay. We don't walk around in a 45-degree angle as you are set up position, tilted over, right?
Right.
So people don't want to maintain that posture. Plus, it takes muscle to maintain that posture.
Right.
You want to come up, out, so that's the way I go about it. Just piece by piece, rehearsal. I don't even have them hit balls. I just had a woman yesterday. I didn't even have her hit balls. Eventually we did, but I want her to get the body clued into, this is what you want me to do? Oh, this is new.
Yeah. And you're reminding me, there's this phenomena in sports and really all activities, and maybe you've experienced this. They talk about, and Tony Robbins I think talks about this, being in the zone.
Yes.
Have you had moments like that where you were in a particular competition or something and it was just like everything clicked together?
Yes.
What can you say about doing the work, the discipline that takes you to this level, and then it flips into the zone where it doesn't feel like you're working anymore? Describe that for me.
Oh, well, for the person who hasn't done it in the golf realm, I would describe it to the person who has worked out and they're in a run and they're in maybe 2 miles in. It'll be different for everybody. 2 miles in, 3 miles in. And then all of a sudden you feel like you can run for 10 miles. You really can't, but you feel like you can.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this feels so good. And luckily I've experienced that as well. So I know what it's like. Oh, I could go forever. This is great. And it's kind of that sensation. It's just, you do become on autopilot. Everything is, you just somehow know things are going to occur. And the mind is so incredibly powerful. I mean, I do study that so much. I remember the first time it happened to me, I was with my pro at his course. I was just trying to think of the age. I was probably around maybe 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this very long putt. I mean, it had to be at least 45, 50 feet long.
Whoa, yeah.
I knew I was going to make it, Paul. I knew I was going to make it. I could have aimed back at the fairway behind me, and something came over me. I was like, I just know I'm going to make it. And sure enough, it went right in the hole, and I was like, well, of course. You know.
That's cool.
But yeah, later on, just putting in all those hours of proper practice, concentrated, aware practice. I mean, there are so many people who go out and just mindlessly go through their life, you know, but being completely aware and with purpose, then you can get into that zone, no matter if you're selling pencils or doing what I do. I mean, it's just something that proper preparation is key.
All right. You know, this is kind of just a side thing almost, but I hear, and you can tell me how common this is, that at some golf courses you have to take an electric cart. And I wonder if you could talk about, using an electric cart versus pulling the bag.
Right.
It seems like if you're doing this for health reasons, it's much better if you can walk the course and draw the bag. But is it harmful to the grass, or what's the story on this?
Number one reason would be it's more revenue for the golf course.
Okay, there you go.
It has nothing to do with speed of play. There have been so many tests that have shown taking a golf cart and walking, same amount of time.
Okay.
Because, you still have to walk back and forth to the golf cart.
Right.
It's like a car on zigzagging, okay? Or a person or a car walking straight to their destination, which is straight to the golf ball if you're walking, right?
Right.
Walking straight to your golf ball, not any of these detours. So that would be number one. But no, the whole aesthetic of carrying your bag even is even better. Talk about a great workout, carrying a load and walking, not pounding on the body, nothing. But pulling or pushing a cart, a push cart, is great as well. But just the whole time, when you're taking a golf cart, the time you have between your shot and the next shot is too minuscule to allow the brain to take a small breather. Around a golf place, 4.5 hours, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
When we're professionals, even the amateur golfers, you should not be thinking for 4.5 hours straight of the next shot, the shot you just hit. You need that time, and that walk in between shots is a very nice place to defrag the brain and just enjoy the nature, hear the sounds, look at the beautiful, luscious colors, and think about life. Think about whatever you want to think about, and then, it's time to hit another golf ball. There's also a study, they said within that 4.5 hours, how long do you think that you're actually performing? And it's like 4.5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So people will come to me after having a golf lesson and say, well, I went out and played, 18 holes, 36 holes. That's great. You really think you put in 9 hours of practice? No. 10 minutes maybe. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You never think of it that way. That's interesting.
Right. Say you hit 100 shots. Say you shoot 100. Well, most of them are going to be putting, all right? So you've got a lot of putt. How long does it take you to hit? Maybe, who knows, maybe 30 putts. How long is it going to take?
Yeah.
40 putts. How long is it going to take to hit 40 putts? And then 60 balls. How long does it take you to hit 60 balls on the range? That's a medium bucket.
Yeah,
You're done.
That's amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about the difference of, let's say you go out, you're doing a regular practice week and you play 18 holes, and compare that to being in a tournament where you're trying to win. What's the pressure like? What's the pressure like when you're with these top players and you want to win? And you just mentioned, between holes you have a chance to enjoy the beauty. When you're in a tournament, are you also doing that as well, or are you kind of just so like focused on winning? Tell me about that.
There's a little combination. I mean, I've done my own fair share of just talking with Nancy Lopez. Luckily, I was able to, when I was out there, we were friendly, and so learning from her and some of the other greats, and learning from the men and how they play and what their thought process is, and the greats like Jack Nicklaus. And
yeah,
you really do have to use your time wisely, but like I said, even the greats do take time out to just breathe. And if they're just aware of the breath, I mean, if it's a high stakes and they're playing for the U.S. Open, win, or the Ryder Cup, or, the mind can't be in such a state that it's going to be stressing out the body, because then the body won't perform.
Right.
You need to be very aware of what's happening in the mind so it doesn't put a damper on what you can do. Gotcha.
Interesting. Okay. Another thing, I'll wrap it up here soon. I've taken a lot of your time. I appreciate it. But can you tell me, like, when you're working with clients, does the veganism come in at all? Like, and you have to. I guess this is a broader question of how do you socially work with this knowledge you have? Like, I'm sure a lot of folks at the golf club, they play 18 holes and then they go in and they have a nice thick steak at the clubhouse, right? So how do you you don't want to turn people off by being a fanatic, but you know what you know. So how do you do it?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, there's knowing what we know and getting that across to people without putting them off completely is a delicate rope to walk. Even on my backpack, what I'm going to have engraved, or not engraved, is stitched in. Right now it has Titleist, but it has these 4 other plus spots. And I have that T-shirt that Harley, Freely Harley, the vegan,
right.
Compassion, planets, animals, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Health and stuff. So I'm going to have that embroidered on there as well. But it will come up, because I'll be having a bag of grapes or something, and food and health and things like that do come up, because the body, you do have to have a bit of athletic ability, and a lot of people these days are more in tune with working out, and even if they're going to some sort of physical therapy and inflammation, the older gentlemen that I work with are dealing with different pains and things, and so that'll bring up the conversation of food. But I try to do it as nicely and gently as possible, and try to create awareness without saying, do you want me to show you the video where they slice the cow's neck and all the blood's pouring down into the drain?
Yeah.
Is that going to be what it takes for you? It's not just a hot dog. Do you know what's in your hot dog? Do you like eating penis? Do you like eating balls? Do you like eating lips and brains?
Amen. Yes.
But there's such a disconnect that it just blows my mind. Yet they'll give me crap for eating the way I do.
Yeah.
And they'll tell me I'm too thin and all this stuff. And so actually quite recently, the last month, I've been just pounding in even more cooked foods and more fruits to kind of fill out a little bit. So it's a lot of fun to do that. But but anyway, it does come up, and people will say, well, why do you do that? And where do you get your protein? And,
Yeah.
you know, then you can go into conspiracy theory. I mean, how deep do you want to go into it with these people? It's all fraud, the government, the Dairy Council, and follow the money. Just like the book Whole is I like to recommend, I take myself out of it.
Yeah.
Most of the time. And I say, hey, here's some resources. Read T. Colin Campbell's book Whole. You know what I want to tell him, Paul? Just like T. Colin Campbell has the nerve to say, cancer will never be cured. We will never find a cure for cancer. He tells us why we won't ever find. But if you and I were to tell somebody that, oh, all this walk for the cure and all this stuff, people are thinking they're doing all this wonderful, you and I would be skewered if we actually.
You know, Joal, it's so amazing. I don't know, are you familiar with Ruth Heydrich?
Yes.
She's amazing. And she relates this experience. She recovered from breast cancer via Dr. McDougall. And so she thought, hey, I'm going to go participate in a breast cancer awareness organization, you know. So she gets in there and she was doing phone work, and she started telling people on the phone that were calling in that she had recovered through diet. And as soon as the upper folks found out she was doing that, they made her leave the organization. So it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's sickening. I mean, my dad has, he's had a quadruple bypass. Let's see, 12 years ago, probably.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And now he's got adult onset diabetes. His eyes are going. He's overweight. He's taking 20 pills a day. And I keep sending him info. And he doesn't believe it because his doctors are telling him, oh, food has nothing. Go ahead and eat your fried food. Stay away from fruit. Oh, my God. Stay away from sugars. You know, but go ahead and eat meat and onion rings and crap. And somehow you're not going to have another heart attack, and you're not going to just lose your leg from diabetes. I mean, it's the food. It's the food. So that's what I do, Paul. I give them resources. I'll send them the ebook of T. Colin Campbell. You know, if they express enough interest, I'll send them a couple links that are just little taste tests, a little sampler platter of a little bit of ethics, a little bit of health, a little bit of research.
I like that sampler platter. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me a little bit about Michigan. Have you noticed, like, say, the past 10, 15 years, has consciousness been shifting where you might actually see a vegan option on a menu? Are you like near a city where you got access to a vegan restaurant, or at least one that gives you some choices?
Yes. Well, number one, just to make it clear for everybody out there, I'm really a Southerner. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
My ex-husband is from Michigan, but I have been here since 94, so too long.
Okay.
But I can tell you, with all my years of experience here, Ann Arbor is very close to me, and I love it. A bunch of hipsters there, and every kind of smorgasbord of people you can imagine.
All right.
And lots of vegan restaurants with lots of options. I really don't go out. I make everything myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't want the oils. That's the main thing, plus the sodium, side note. But, to find a place that's truly no oil, there's this great place in Dearborn I go where the chef makes, it's a Arab restaurant, so he'll make the tabbouleh and the fool, no salt, no oil.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, it's fantastic. So I have a couple of places like that, but otherwise I make everything myself. But I have seen, I do deal with restaurants since I'm also in sales for Preferred Brands Produce. So I am in restaurants all the time as far as my business part goes, not to enjoy. I always joke, I'd like to go back to going in the front door restaurants, because now all I do is go in the back door restaurants, right into the kitchen. But I do deal with these chefs and their menus, and they know there's pressure on those chefs and those restaurants these days, Paul, to have vegan items, to have at the very least vegetarian, but more so heart healthy. But they still put the olive oil on them. God forbid we tell people olive oil is just as bad as vegetable oil or any other oil. Who cares? It's oil, you know.
Yeah.
And so I send a lot of people, The Last Heart Attack by Sanjay Gupta with Dr. Esselstyn. I can't even tell you how many times I've sent that video out. In 44 minutes, I think it is, 43 minutes, everything's right there for them. Right there. You don't even have to read the book.
You know, I'm glad you're bringing this up. Can you tell me what you've read along the way? You know, there's a couple of movements out there which in some ways are better than SAD. Like, you know, you could say paleo is better than SAD in the sense that they're at least recommending people to get off processed foods, and they're quasi, you know, trying to get people to eat, I guess, ethically raised animal products, you know. But what have you seen in terms of health? Because I think some people they think that that's possibly healthier than a vegan diet, and it amazes me that perception is out there. So
Me too.
Yeah.
And I've recently been listening to a lot of podcasts that have that paleo mentality just to learn more of why people are taking this in. And the old adage of people want to hear good excuses for their bad habits.
Yeah.
And for that person who tells me, oh, they're grass-fed. Oh, really? Oh, and they were treated well, and they had a lot of air and land to roam. Wonderful. How were they killed?
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, it's infuriating. Who cares? They're organically raised? Woo! Whoopie flip! That disconnect, I'm telling you, the rage that goes through my body right now. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, I was just listening to a podcast last night with Dr. Greger. I was mowing my lawn, and I always listen to podcasts. It was one of the old interviews with Rich Roll. It was like his third podcast.
Okay,
with,
cool.
Michael Greger. It was fantastic. You should go back if you haven't heard it yet. I love Michael Greger. Love him.
Yeah, he's cool.
I listen to him talk all day long.
Yeah, he's awesome.
The research and the devotion he has to helping people get healthy, I admire. But he was saying that, in the paleo movement, eating a whole food is still going to give you, sure, you get protein from an animal. You're also getting the saturated fat from the animal. Where else could you get your protein from? Oh, gee, and your other vitamins and all that stuff that they say is in the flesh of an animal. You can get it from, or good fats, if you're going to take in fats, an avocado. And hey, if you eat the avocado, guess what? You get all the other good stuff that comes with the avocado.
Right.
And, I just don't buy into the fact that taking in flesh and all that adrenaline from that animal at the time of slaughter is good for you in any way. From a compassionate, which we have lost across the board in human beings. And I don't think it's just because of technology. You and I could have a very passionate conversation, and this is all technology. So we can't blame it that we're just looking at our computers, do. We still have lost our compassion for our fellow man, and you can see that everywhere, and there's the disconnect in the animal. So you won't eat your dog or cat, but you'll eat your cow or your pig or your chicken, and you'll call it, a skirt steak. Let's call it what it is. You know what I mean? Or a hot dog, or whatever. It's just such baloney. And I use the term baloney so often because I know what's in baloney, and it's a bunch of crap. So that's almost a curse word for me. But
I like it.
Yeah, so the paleo thing, I do learn about it so that I can be educated when people tell me, oh, well, what about paleo? Yeah, it's great that they shun dairy. It's great that you want you to eat more plants. Great. But we don't need to exist on the meat. We don't need it.
Yeah.
So why do it then?
Beautiful. And there's another movement that it's a little different, but I think sometimes they kind of intertwine because with the gluten intolerance thing, some people think if they're gluten intolerant, then that's going to greatly limit a vegetarian or vegan approach. So they just default to using meat as their primary source of calories. How common do you think this gluten intolerance thing is, do you think it's a bit faddish? It seems to be kind of tied up with this low carb movement a little bit. What's your, and since you're a sensitive person, like if you eat some bread or pasta, do you have any sensitivity to that?
Well, I can tell you from both sides, from my own experience, because I thought, oh, maybe I'm gluten intolerant, and it is. I can tell you, I feel that it is more of a fad, and I can tell you for these chefs that I deal with, it's a pain. Because you've got a lot of people coming into your restaurant now, instead of just the vegetarian or heart healthy or vegan, now at your standard restaurants, you've got, gluten-free, because everybo's on the gluten-free wagon. And somehow that's magically going to make all the lard disappear off of my body. And, so it just is, I think, yes, there are people with celiac that have to be concerned about it. 100%. But I think a lot of people are just grasping at straws to try to find something that, maybe that's the reason. And I like to go back to Dr. McDougall and starch solution and, look at all those great whole foods, potatoes, rice, corn, things that people can eat without having the gluten as part of.
Right. You can be vegan and not eat gluten. You can,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I try. I usually don't eat, but I mean, sometimes I will. Like the last 2 weeks I have. I've had, we in my house, we call BLTs bread, lettuce, and tomato.
Yeah, I love it. Those are awesome. Yeah.
That's what we do. And we use, for the girls, I use Veganase. Normally I wouldn't imbibe in the Veganase, but lately, the last 2 weeks I have. Yeah. And gosh, it's fantastic. I mean, so that's.
I know, it's amazing how something that simple is so good. I'm with you. I put a little bit of mustard on mine. I know that's probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm going all the way, I'll do the mustard. I'll pay for it because of all the sodium, but yeah. Oh, I'd have mustard on everything if I could.
All right. Well, Joal, it's a real pleasure. Can you, if you were to generally give somebody some tips, if they were just considering this way of living for the first time, or even maybe a long term, or just what are some general tips you'd give somebody that wants to live this way?
What I would suggest are a couple of the basic books that I mentioned so that they get a foundation of real quantitative data so that in their mind they know that this is proven.
Yeah.
So that they don't have the doubt. Because I think a lot of people, vegan? You're some hippie woo-woo BS, Yeah, that's only for that kind of person.
Right.
And so I would suggest, a couple of those books.
That would be like Dr. Esselstyn, T. Colin Campbell.
I would say Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease.
Yep.
I would say Dr. T. Colin Campbell's Whole. Yep. I would say Dr. McDougall's Starch Solution.
Yep.
I would say Dr. Neil Bernard's Reversing Diabetes. Yep. Because people are so scared of sugar, Paul. It's like a snake is in the house.
Yes. It's
and
crazy.
Then I tell them you've got 300 trillion cells or somewhere around there in the body. And they all operate on what? Do they operate on animal flesh? Blood? Guts? No. Protein? No. Glucose! Where do you get glucose from? You know what I mean? So
I know. It's like so basic. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I would suggest those books first, and then I would do some YouTube videos, along those same lines of the videos of those doctors, because Dr. Neil Bernard has that great one. I'm sure you've seen it. Meat, meat, dairy, and chocolate, all addictive.
I probably have. I'll check it out again. I'll check it out. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, he's great. I love him. That PCRM, they're doing great stuff.
Oh, yes. Yeah, fantastic. And then the next most important thing right outside of education is giving them the foods that they can feel satiated with. Because a lot of people think, I'm going to starve. I can't go without my ho-hos and my ding-dongs and my chips and my, meat and my bread. I tell them, eat as much of these foods as you want till you are satisfied. Eat eat, because people think they're going to be deprived. And if they get it.
Yeah, I think this is such a huge thing, Joal. People think, okay, I'm going to go on a diet and I'm just going to eat salads. You're not going to, I mean, salads are great to an extent, but you're not going to get enough calories on salads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or all the nutrients. I mean, the greens are great, but they have to, and we want sweet. Like Dr. McDougall says, we have sweet taste buds. We have salty taste buds. We're designed for sweet. So you're not going to be depriving yourself. That's what I try to tell people is it's not a diet of deprivation. Sit down with me. I'll show you how much I eat. I'll out-eat anybody.
Yeah. It's such a huge point. Can you tell, Joal, for the viewers, your website, your YouTube channel, if they can maybe email you? Do you do consultations via the internet if someone wanted some golfing instruction via Skype?
Yeah, I do both actually. I do nutrition. I helped a gentleman in Canada most recently go from the standard American diet to he's lost 50 pounds and
awesome.
He's about he's a tall guy, he's like 6'3", and it's just feeling incredible. Never thought he could feel. So I'll do both. Like people send me their golf swings and stuff. So yes, thank you. My YouTube channel is simply Joal Harding. I'm trying to think of a fun name.
Okay.
But I have both on there right now. I have golf videos and a couple of nutrition videos. I have a Pinterest.
So it's just joalharding.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Cool.
On YouTube, it's just YouTube/Joal Harding.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And then on Pinterest, I have Joal's Heart Healthy Living. And there I have a whole bunch of recipes with photos of my recipes. And the actual recipes, they're all oil-free. And so they're in line with Esselstyn.
All right.
And, obviously vegan.
Cool.
And then on Twitter, I'm just at Joal Harding. And yes, if anybody wants to email me or get in touch with me, my email address is, the best one is JOALH68@gmail.com.
Okay, great.
I welcome it. I really do. I won't go as hardcore as I am with you and as direct, but there always will come a time when the door is open and I can present some of that information. But, I just think what you're doing and what people will feel so much better physically is almost an afterthought. The disease goes away, and just the knowing that they're not stopping another's heartbeat for them to eat, I think the peace of mind is worth the price of admission.
Powerful. I love that. Not stopping another heartbeat so that you can keep surviving. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Joal, thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure. It's great to see you and meet you.
Yeah, it's really great. So maybe down the line we'll do another one. We do a like just to catch up, see how you're doing. So
great. I'll be adding more YouTube videos. I'm a little bit in the swing of golf season right now, so things are a little really busy. But I'm hoping to add more videos and kind of a daily kind of vlog style, because I think it's helpful for people to see, hey, this can be done, and this is what they're doing, and I can do that.
Definitely.
Make it accessible and doable.
All right. I love the enthusiasm too. It's just like coming off you. It's like, it's really good. It's really good.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, Joal. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.